Good morning, church. Well, I got to say that I almost threw in the towel many times on this one. But in light of what this message was about, I felt that I had to stick through with this. And I promise I will never call you again, Adam. And Eddie happened to be at my house yesterday. And, this was such a struggle for me that my wife so generously put a big puppet in front of me so that I could preach to that puppet. Because I kept calling her over so that I could, kind of share the ideas with her. She's trying to run away. So Eddie happened to come in, and it scared you, didn't you? Didn't it scare you? Yeah, it was very scary. So it didn't help at all. And, Eddie and I were talking, and he made an offer to, pass out on stage if I needed some help. But if you've ever watched an inspirational movie, like when one of the teammates go down, it inspires everyone else. So I felt like if I had Eddie pass out, it might actually inspire the church, and like it would work against me. So, Eddie is still here with you today. But if you ever see him pass out, know that he had a deal with whoever's preaching that day, and on that day, make sure you are the livest ever. So, thank you, Eddie. And, I thank God for the opportunity to be here today, just to share this word with you. As I said before, it was definitely a struggle to put this together. I was just wrestling with it a lot, and it wasn't up until, this morning that, I finally got some clarity, and God has been providing me clarity, making it clearer and clearer to me as we've arrived to this point. And so I thank God for that. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So we're going to start out of Exodus 10, and we're going to read verses 21 through 29. And it's about the plague of darkness. And so then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand towards the sky so that the darkness spreads over Egypt, darkness that can be felt." So Moses stretched out his hand towards the sky, and total darkness covered all Egypt for 3 days. No one could see anyone else or move about for 3 days. Yet all the Israelites had the light in the places where they lived. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and said, "Go worship the Lord. Even your men and women may go with you. Only leave your flocks and herds behind." But Moses said, "You must allow us to have the sacrifices and burnt offerings to present to the Lord our God. Our livestock must go with us. Not a hoof is to be left behind. We have to use them in worshiping the Lord our God. And until we get there, we will not know what we are to use to worship the Lord." But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he was not willing to let them go. Pharaoh said to Moses, "Get out of my sight. Make sure you do not appear before me again. The day you see my face, you will die." "Just as you say," Moses replied, "I will never appear before you again." God cares about us. That's a very loaded statement. And, many of you or some of you, either here or online watching us, you're thinking, well, if God cares about us, how could he allow evil? Some of you are saying, well, if God cares about us, how could he allow my marriage to fail? Some of you are saying, well, if God cares about us, how could he allow me as a child to get molested? Hang in there, because we're going to get to that answer. The book of Exodus was written about 3,500 years ago by Moses. And he wrote it so that the Israelites could understand what it means to be in a relationship with God. And the narrative has not changed to today. Exodus means the way out, with the first 15 chapters concentrating on the process that God used to get the Israelites out of Egypt. You see, the Israelites were they were slaves to Pharaoh. They were oppressed, and it was really hard for them. And the book starts out that way, with them under oppression with Pharaoh. But the beautiful thing about this book is that it ends with God moving in, and them being servants of God. In Exodus 3:7, it starts with the Lord saying to Moses, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have seen them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. God cares about us. Now, to answer your question about evil, about failed marriages, he invites us to participate in his plan. Now, you say, why? Why doesn't God just come down and handle his business and just take care of it and just wipe off every evil on this planet? Well, because first of all, if he was going to start that way, you and I wouldn't have an opportunity, because evil is inherent in us. We're born with sin. And so, God would have to get rid of us as well if he was to come and interfere in terms of what's happening here on this earth. And also the reason why is because when God designed us, he gave us free will. And so if he comes and he forces us to do something that we don't want to do, then he has lied as God. Because if he says you have free will and he comes and takes it away, then we never had free will to begin with. And so God gives us free will on this earth, which is why some people choose evil and some people choose not to do evil. If he were to be able to force us to do things, we would be a puppet. We would not be human beings. And so God gives us this free will. And lastly, because God has designed us to work. I mean, everything about us speaks about work. You know, work is not evil. It's not because of sin that we have to work hard. When God placed us when God created Adam and he put us in the garden, he actually he said, be fruitful and multiply. He said, fill the earth and subdue it. We had teeth before we sinned, which means even to eat, God wanted us to work, right? I mean, our physical bodies tell us that we were meant to work, because muscle, if you don't build it, you lose it, right? So everything about us indicates that God has designed us to work. He has given us free will, and he cares about us. And that's why, because he cares about us, that's why he invites us to participate in his rescue plan for his people. You see, for the Israelites, he raised up one from amongst them, Moses. And he called upon Moses. Just like he's calling upon you and me, he's calling upon us. But it's up to us to respond. Right? He said in Exodus 3:10 to Moses, so now go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. He called him. And you know, Moses resisted. There was this back and forth, until finally God was like, all right, take your brother Aaron with you. Right? So it just goes to show you the power behind how God functions. Originally, it was only supposed to be Moses. It was Moses' job to do. But then because he resisted so much, God gave him an alternative to bring Aaron with him. And so what I'm saying is that God is inviting us to participate in his plan. But there's something that's very important for you and I as we are going through this journey, as we are going through this process for deliverance, is to leave nothing behind. And that is our title today, Leave Nothing Behind. The process for deliverance is not easy. Moses had to try, ask Pharaoh 10 times. 10 different ways, 10 different plagues Moses had to use to speak with Pharaoh to get the Israelites to be free. And, it's not like I come to you and I say, hey, can you let my people go? And then you're like, no, and then I come back tomorrow and I say, hey, can you let my people go again? Moses was coming down with the hammer, right? When we look at these plagues, the first one being the plague of blood, where every water, whether still or the Nile River, turned into blood. I mean, that is devastating for a nation to go through. Can you imagine? Anything you drink, it tastes like blood. Have you ever tasted blood? The second thing plague that Moses used was a plague of frogs. Frogs coming out of the Nile and filling people's homes. Imagine waking up with a frog on your bed, or multitudes of frogs on your bed, everywhere you go. The third try was with gnats, filling the country. Fourth try with flies. Fifth try, livestock dying. Sixth try, boils literally on their skins. Seventh, hail coming down from the sky. Eighth, locust. Ninth, darkness. Are you tired already? Pharaoh was not giving up. And the last was the death of every firstborn in Egypt other than the Israelites. And it was only at that point that Pharaoh let go. But before we got to the 10th plague, we had the darkness. And that's when Pharaoh makes Moses an offer. Right? He says, you can go. Take your men, take your women, your children, but leave your livestock. They're slaves. And Moses knew that this is not what God wanted, right? And so Moses was not willing to settle for less. He was not willing to leave anything behind. And what I'm saying is that in our journey, in the process of God delivering us, in the process of God bringing change, we have to be a church that never settles for less, being unwilling to leave something behind, anything, nothing. Pharaoh, now the funny thing is Pharaoh made Moses 3 offers. The first time he said, you could worship in this land. Moses said no. The second time he said, all right, the men can go worship. Moses said no. And then the third time, that's when he made the greatest offer that he could make. And still yet Moses said no. And what I'm saying is that when you're looking over your lives in the challenges and the things that you're fighting for, you are going to get offers, meaning in your marriage, to settle and to leave it at the level that it is. But God doesn't want your marriage like that. He wants your marriage to be greater than that. But He's not going to be the one to change your marriage. You have to be the one who willingly participates in His plan for your marriage. When we look at Castle Church, right? And I was speaking to Adam when, right around this time last year, there was a lot of unrest in the country. And we were talking about the challenges that Adam is facing. And Adam had to stand alone about his beliefs. Adam had to stand alone about speaking out against injustice. And he paid a dear price for that. But Adam had to look at where the church is supposed to be and what was being offered to him at that moment and say, this is not good enough. And I have to speak out because my vision is a church with different races, different colors, and different faces worshiping together. But it doesn't stop with him. It goes to you. It goes to your relationship with your children, your relationship with yourself. God is calling upon you to participate in this process of deliverance. And what participation looks like is different for everybody. Some people, only way you're going to be able to participate in whatever it is that God has called you to is through your money. Other people, it's going to be through your prayers. Other people, it's going to be through action. Actual physical presence, you going out and doing something. This is how God is going to change not only your lives, but He's going to change this world. And this is how He wants to operate through us and Him in partnership, working together. And when we do that, we will come out stronger, free from bondage. As a result of all of this, Moses not settling for less, what if he had said yes at plague number 9 with the third offer? Right? They would not have this relationship that they're going to have with God after the point. Because after the 10th plague, this is when Israel is given the festival of unleavened bread, which is a festival to celebrate their exodus from Egypt. This is also where they have the celebration of the Passover, which 3,500 years later, they still celebrate. Because Moses was unwilling to leave anything behind. And also, when they left rich in freedom. They were free, but not only were they free, but they plundered Egypt of their goods. In Exodus 12, verse 35 through 36, it says that they took Egypt's silver, gold, and fine clothing. So they they left with everything that was theirs, and they took everything that belonged to the enemy with them. They came out stronger. And what I'm saying is, when we are willing to be patient, when we are willing to participate and go through the process, when we're willing to say no to good enough, we will come out stronger. And this is what it means to be in a relationship with God. And finally, our relationship with God will grow deeper. There is another part of Moses' response to Pharaoh that really stuck out to me. In verse 26, he says, until we get there, we will not know what we are to use to worship the Lord. Well, as a result of Moses saying no, as a result of them coming out stronger with Egypt's rich wealth, they were able to build God's temple. In Exodus verse 38 through 39, it gives us an inventory of the things that they used to build the temple. 2,200 pounds of gold, 7,600 pounds of silver, 5,300 pounds of bronze, yarn, finely twisted linen, onyx stones, and much, much more. They decorated God's house with the same wealth that they took from the enemy. And what I'm saying is, when we stick to the process, there's this beautiful thing that's going to happen where God will be equipping you with things that you would have never imagined. And He will use that in a way to continue building His house. The book of Exodus ends with God moving in. It says in Exodus 40, verse 34 through 35, it says, "Then the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Moses could not enter the tent of meetings because the cloud had settled on it, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle." When we don't leave anything behind, it deepens the relationship we have with our God. Castle Church, Exodus was written so that we can understand what it means to be in relationship with God. And the narrative hasn't changed today, 3,500 years later. God cares about you. God cares about Norwich. He has invited you and I to participate in His deliverance plan for this city, despite it being overwhelming. We will leave nothing behind. We are a nevertheless church. And what I'm going to say now comes straight off your website. It's not original. Even in the face of rejection and impossible odds, we can still overcome. We will come out stronger. And Norwich's relationship with God will deepen. But here's the beautiful thing. During the time Exodus was written, God's presence had to be inside a building. Today, God's presence is going to be inside of each and every soul that's out there. I want you to imagine this as I read Exodus verse 40, 34 through 35. And instead of it being a building, imagine it being a person. Then the cloud covered the tent of meetings, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Moses could not enter the tent of meeting because the cloud that had settled on it and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Today, the tabernacle is our hearts. And God is going to fill the hearts of many, many people here in this city. And it's going to start with what you and I have decided to do, which is to participate in His plan for deliverance. And finally, they are cheering us on. Who? When I say they. I'm going to read this out of the book of Hebrews so that I could close. It comes out of Hebrews chapter 11, verse 32, and we're going to end at chapter 12, verse 3. In what more shall I say? I do not have the time to tell about Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, about David, Samuel, and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, who shut the mouths of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, and who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. Women received back their dead, raised to life again. There were others who were tortured, refusing to be released, so that they might gain even an even better resurrection, leaving nothing behind. Some faced jeers and flogging and even chains and imprisonment. They were put to death by stoning. They were sawed in two. They were killed by the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, destitute, persecuted, and mistreated. The world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and mountains, living in caves, in holes, and in the ground. They were all commended for their faith. Yet none of them received what had been promised. Since God had planned something better for us, that only together with us would be made perfect. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great crowd of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. For the glory set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. Church, they are cheering us on. Earlier in that same chapter, the author of Hebrews lists some other people who are cheering us on. Abel, Enoch, Noah, Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, Joshua, Rahab. It's as if he's saying, from the very beginning of time until today, all of these champions, these giants, they are up in heaven and they're watching us right now, and they are cheering us on. And they are saying, do not grow weary, do not lose heart. We have members from Castle Church that we have lost because of COVID and other natural means. They are cheering us on. They are saying, do not grow weary. They see you fighting for your marriage. They're saying, don't grow weary. They see you're ready to give up, end your life. They're saying, don't give in. They see that you're ready to give up on your children, on your future. They're like, we made it. You can make it. Do not leave anything behind. God bless you.
Before I spoke a word, you singing off of me. You've been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathing life in me. You've been so, so kind to me. All the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, He's chasing me down, fights in life. I'll leave the 99. I don't deserve it. I don't deserve it. Till you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You've been so, so good to me. When I felt no one, you paid all on me. Oh, you've been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love. Oh, he's chasing me down, fighting life. I lived in 99. I couldn't earn it. I don't deserve it. Till you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. No wall you won't kick down, fire you won't tear down, coming after me. No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. No wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Yeah, no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. Yeah, no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. One more time, no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up. say